Warning. The following program contains flashing imagery and content which may be considered harmful or traumatizing to some. Viewer discretion is extremely advised. Welcome to the darkest depths. John Robinson was a con man with 4 kids who had already served 4 years probation for embezzling from his former employer. After several other run-ins with the law over fraud and stealing from the few friends that he had, he decided that fraud wasn't enough for his satisfaction. In 1984, John hired 19-year-old Paula Godfrey to work as a sales rep in one of his phony shell companies that he had created. Paula told her parents that John was sending her away for training, but after weeks went by without them hearing from her, they filed a missing person report. Police questioned John Robinson, who denied any knowledge of her whereabouts. Several days later, her parents received a typewritten letter with Paula's signature at the bottom, thanking John Robinson for his help and asserting that she was okay and did not want to see her family. The investigation was terminated as Paula Godfrey was of legal age and there was no evidence of wrongdoing. No trace of Paula Godfrey has ever been found. In 1985, Robinson met Lisa Stassi and her 4-month-old daughter Tiffany at a women's shelter in Kansas City. He promised Lisa a job in Chicago, an apartment, and daycare for Tiffany, but first asked her to sign several sheets of blank stationery. A few days later, John Robinson contacted his brother and sister-in-law, who had been unable to adopt their own child through traditional channels, and informed them that he knew of a baby whose mother had committed suicide. For $5,500 in legal fees, the couple received Tiffany Stassi, whose identity was confirmed in DNA testing in 2000. Her mother Lisa was never heard from again. In 1987, 27-year-old Catherine Clampett left her child with her parents in Texas and moved to Kansas City, where she met John Robinson. John hired her and promised her lots of travel and a new wardrobe. Catherine vanished in June of that year, and her missing persons case remains open. From 1987 to 1993, Robinson was incarcerated in Kansas and Missouri for fraud and parole violations, which is where he met 49-year-old Beverly Bonner, who was the prison librarian. Upon John's release, Beverly immediately left her husband and moved to Kansas to work for Robinson. After Robinson arranged for Bonner's alimony checks to be forwarded to a Kansas post office box, her family never heard from her again. For several years, Beverly's mother continued forwarding her alimony checks, and Robinson continued cashing them. By then, John Robinson had discovered the internet and roamed online chat rooms using the name Slave Master. There he met 45-year-old Sheila Faith, whose 15-year-old daughter Debbie was in a wheelchair due to spinal bifida. John, portraying himself as a wealthy businessman, offered to pay young Debbie's medical costs and give her mother Sheila a job. In 1994, the mother and daughter moved from their home in California to Kansas, where they both immediately disappeared. But John Robinson would cash Sheila Faith's pension checks for the next 7 years straight. Robinson became well known in increasingly popular BDSM chat rooms. In 1999, he offered a job and bondage relationship to Isabella Lewicka, a 21-year-old Polish immigrant living in Indiana. When she moved to Kansas City, the very married Robinson gave Isabella an engagement ring and paid for a marriage license that was never picked up. He then had her sign a slave contract, which gave him almost total control over every aspect of her life and money. Sometime during the summer of 1999, she disappeared without a trace. Robinson told one of his employees that she had been caught smoking marijuana and deported. Around the time of Isabella's disappearance, a licensed practical nurse named Suzette Troughton moved from Michigan to Kansas to travel the world with John as his submissive sex slave. Troughton's mother received several typed letters signed by her daughter, which were supposedly mailed while the couple were abroad, yet the envelopes all bore Kansas City postmarks. According to her mother, the letters were uncharacteristically free of mistakes. Later, Robinson told Troughton's mother that she had run off with a boyfriend after stealing money from him. But over time, Robinson became increasingly careless, and his ability to avoid detection declined. By 1999, he had attracted the attention of authorities in Kansas and Missouri, as his name frequently came up in missing person investigations. When they arrested John Robinson in June of 2000 at his farm in Kansas, it was for a sexual battery complaint filed by a woman that he had met on the internet. And after obtaining a search warrant, they found the unthinkable on John Robinson's farm. Inside, there were dozens of sex and torture toys, as well as 2 large 85-pound chemical drums that contained the bodies of Isabella Louika and Suzette Troughton. Both were in advanced stages of decay. Across the state line in Missouri, investigators searched a storage facility where Robinson rented 2 garages. In one storage unit, they found missing personal items belonging to numerous victims, such as birth certificates, social security cards, credit cards, and driver's licenses. There were also pornographic pictures and videos of some of the victims. In the other storage unit, they found 3 more chemical drums, which contained the corpses of Beverly Bonner, Sheila Faith, and her disabled daughter, Debbie. All the women had been killed in the same way, by 1 or more blows to the back of the head with a blunt object. After the longest criminal trial in Kansas history, John Robinson was convicted on 5 counts of murder and sentenced to death, where he currently remains on Kansas death row. Kansas and Missouri police note that there are long stretches of Robinson's time that remain unaccounted for, meaning that there are other barrels waiting to be opened, and other bodies waiting to be found.
Thank you for watching Darkest Depths. Follow on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok for the absolute worst that humanity has to offer in true crime and horror. Merchandise available through teespring.com. Episode requests made through darkestdepthstruecrime@gmail.com. No one is safe.